All right, looks like we are live. Welcome to Standing for Truth. I am your host, Donnie, and I want to thank you all for being here for the next chapter in our 2022 Evolution Debate Challenge series. We've got Jackson Roe here taking the debate challenge, and of course, Dr. Kent Hovind himself, who will be engaging Jackson Roe's lines of evidence that he presents in tonight's debate. Gentlemen, Kent and Jackson, thank you so much for giving us your time for tonight's important debate.
Good to be here.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
Okay, well, for the audience sake, format-wise, as usual, we're keeping it professional and formal. We're going to be having equally timed opening statements, some short rebuttals, and then we are going to engage each line of evidence for about 10 minutes. Then, of course, we'll have some quick closing statements and an audience Q&A. This is where we get you guys in the audience involved. Please make sure you're tagging me with your questions at Standing for Truth, and that way I won't miss them. Okay, let's break the ice for 30 seconds or so, get to know the debaters a little bit. Jackson, it has actually been a little bit since you've been here on the channel, so let's start with you. How you been? What's going on? And a little bit about your channel.
I've been doing all right. I haven't posted a video in a while. I've been kind of depressed the last week or two, but the last couple of days I've been feeling better, so hopefully that continues. But just some stuff going on in my life, but it's been improving. So also, I'm kind of filling in last minute for another guy. So hopefully I have everything prepared. But you called me, Donnie. I was eating some Mexican food at a restaurant. So if we have to take a break and go, so I can go to the bathroom, that might have to be an issue. But other than that, I think we're good.
Well, you couldn't pass up on the Evolution Debate Challenge, right? You can't just allow all the other evolutionists to have all the fun. Yeah. I think this will make for about debate 20 in this series. So, Dr. Hovind, you have unlimited energy and endurance, brother. I appreciate you doing this challenge. How you been? What's going on? And how's everything at Dal?
God's been good. Some of God's kids drive me crazy, but God is good. We're having visitors come all the time for Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama. Come on down. We believe the Bible is true, and evolution is the dumbest and most dangerous religious cult in the history of the world. It's a mental illness to believe you're related to a mosquito and you all came from a rock. We're here to help. Those who believe that, we can fix it. So tune in to our channel, Kent Hovind Official, on YouTube. We do one every night, unless we have a debate like tonight. And so we're winning souls and getting people baptized and getting them out busy serving the Lord. Come on down to our boot camp coming up July 1st through the 4th. Will they let you out of Canada yet, brother? Or are you still captive?
Hopefully by June we'll have some luck. Either way, I'll be at that boot camp. I look forward to speak. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Jackson, you're invited too. July 1st through the 4th, Creation Boot Camp here at Lenox, Alabama, Dinosaur Adventureland. Come on down.
I might show up.
We'll have a live debate, Jackson. You versus all us creationists. Me, Matt, Kent, Steve. Steve can get in on it. So
seems kind of unfair.
you can handle it. Okay, well, I appreciate the intros, Kent and Jackson. We've already got a very lively chat. So to everybody in the audience, make sure you are attacking the arguments and not each other. That's pertaining to the live chat. We got a lot of people in there. So, okay, Kent and Jackson, let's get into the fun and the party. Is evolution a valid scientific theory, or is there reasonable evidence for evolution? Jackson, we are going to hand it over to you. Whatever time you take, we're going to give Dr. Dino equal time. So the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Bear with me because it's kind of last minute, but I do have some stuff put together. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, are you seeing it?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to talk about endogenous retroviruses, which has been talked a lot about lately. And Kent did a video, I think, last night about it. I didn't watch it. I probably should have. But let's see. I'll see what he has to say about what I have to say about it. So ERVs, endogenous retroviruses, are passed on when a virus infects a gamete cell and gets passed on to each successive generation. That's important to know because humans and chimpanzees, for example, share 99.8% of these endogenous retroviruses, and there are 98,000 endogenous retroviruses, which makes up about 5 to 8% of the genome in total. So it's a huge part of the genome. Now, you can trace back endogenous retroviruses. It makes a hierarchy. We share more with chimps than we do with gorillas, than we do with orangutans and gibbons, rhesus monkeys, old world monkeys, new world monkeys. And it makes just a really coincidental tree that you wouldn't expect if evolution wasn't true. Now, another thing that's been talked a little bit about, pseudogenes. Pseudogenes can actually be functional. They can regain function through mutation. New functions are the same function, but oftentimes they don't really do anything. I'm going to talk about the nanog-P genes series. Chimps and humans share nanog-P 6, 5, 3, 10, 2, 9, 7, 1, 4. Only nanog-P 8 is human specific. So 90% are shared there. Now, chromosome 2. This is human chromosome 2. Humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, while chimps and other primates have 24 pairs. Evidently, 2 chromosomes fused in humans. It's been identified as chromosome 2 and chimp chromosome 2A and 2B. The DNA sequences on 2A and 2B are almost identical to chromosome 2, which is a big coincidence if they're not fused. There's a vestigial centromere and a telomere in the middle of the chromosome 2. Telomeres are found on the ends of chromosomes usually. They're repeat patterns of AAT, GGG, usually about 15,000 base pairs long in humans, but it's reduced in the center of chromosome 2 to maybe a couple hundred AAT, GGG repetitions, but still enough to show that this is in fact a telomere, a fusion site. Let's see, what else do I have? Here are just some telomeres highlighted in yellow. That's where the telomeres are on the chromosomes. Now let's talk about similarities. Well, first I'm going to talk about humans and chimps have accumulated more deleterious mutations over evolution than have most other mammals. It's just an interesting argument I came across for, I don't know how it applies to genetic entropy, but it's just an interesting fact. Apes and humans similarities, we both have dermal ridges on our fingers, palms, trichromatic vision, encased eye sockets, fingernails instead of claws, many of the same blood type systems, the same dental layout, and many other things. Obviously, the skeletons are very similar. Intelligence level, bonobos like Kanzi and Pan Venetia know about 1,000 symbols each, and they can communicate through those. Everyone's heard of Coco the gorilla who could use sign language. So they're very, very intelligent. Now I'm going to go one short thing about fossils. This is Australopithecus prometheus. He was discovered almost completely articulated, encased in limestone in Sterkfontein Cave in South Africa. What's significant about that is you can't say it's a chimera, and you can't say it's a bunch of different bones put together, because this thing was found articulated. You can see even the hand is still fused together, encased in limestone. They didn't bother taking it apart. But the skull obviously is very primitive basal ape-like, but the spine is S-shaped, slight S-shaped like ours. The rib cage was barrel-shaped instead of cone-shaped. The pelvis is shaped like ours. The angle of the femur indicates it was a biped. The knee, the ankle joint, pretty much everything says this thing walked upright, and that's important because most creationists say that Australopithecines couldn't walk upright. They try to portray them as knuckle walkers. Now, this is just kind of funny. If this doesn't convince you, then maybe this will.
Landslide Link and the Evolution Revolution. It's always hanging over the back for the trouble and the other woman can be. 'Cause you got the kind of love and sustain, you got the promise in. Every time that I love you, girl, there's always something special inside.
Anyway, that's the opening statement. Kind of a
Okay,
catchy
Jackson. There we go. I appreciate a little bit of humor there at the end. Jackson Roe. So that was about 6 minutes, and so we will give Dr. Dino equal time. If you need to take a couple more minutes, of course, Kent, you can do so. Usually we do about 10 to 12 minutes. So Jackson, again, I appreciate the opening statement, and we're going to hand it over to Kent. Kent, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you, sir, and appreciate that. The you mentioned the chromosome 2. We covered that last night in the section I did in great detail. If you want to watch Kent Hovind official last night, human chromosome 2 fusion never happened. They're trying to solve a problem because apes and monkeys and chimpanzees have 48 chromosomes. Humans only have 46. And they say, aha, that's because 2 of them fused together, which is all baloney, okay? Not true at all. He talks about the telomeres at the end. I'm sorry, Jackson, you are simply wrong. It's true, telomeres are at the end. But they studied this evolutionary solution to the end-to-end fusion of 2 small ape-like chromosomes, 2A and 2B, produced human chromosome 2. That's what they say. First concept of fusion came about in 1982. Scientists examined similarities of human and ape chromosome under a microscope. When the technique was somewhat crude, it did get the idea going. So I covered that last night in great detail. Let's see. Telomere sequences at the ends of chromosomes are typically 5,000 to 15,000 base pairs long. This is not simple. One chromosome is more complicated than New York City. And so there are thousands and thousands of base pairs in the, sometimes maybe even tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands in these chromosomes. If the 2 chromosomes had fused, you should see a fused telomere signature of 10,000 to 30,000 bases, but it's only 798. This is not a fusion of a chromosome. Human chromosome number 2 is designed for humans, absolutely designed. Not only the small size is a problem of the fusion story, signature doesn't really represent a clear-cut fusion of telomeres. Figure 2 shows the DNA letters of 798 base fusion site with the 6 base DNA letter, intact telomere sequence, emphasized in bold print. This is from the article on ICR, Institute for Creation Research, about this. You can look that up by Jeffrey Tompkins. He covers it thoroughly at Institute for Creation Research. It is not evidence for evolution. I don't understand, Jackson, you guys are so desperate to believe you're related to a chimpanzee. Well, go marry one or something. You know, I don't understand. There is just, the chimpanzees are designed to have baby chimpanzees. That's all they ever have. Apes have apes, monkeys have monkeys. There's no similarity. Humans are not related to apes or chimps or monkeys of any kind. We have the same designer. Let's see. This fusion site, the discovery came about while Jeffrey writes in, I was reading the research paper, detailed analysis of 614,000 bases of DNA sequence surrounding the alleged fusion site. I noticed that one of the figures that the fusion site was located inside the gene. Now, Jackson, do some research on this. This is inside the genetic code, okay? Perhaps this piece of information wouldn't have been the nail in the evolutionary coffin, so to speak. It would have been. That's why the researchers declined to discuss it. But it is discussed in this article on ICR.org. Due to muddled signatures and small size of the alleged fusion in fossil centromeres, it cites, it's highly questionable that their sequence was evolutionary derived from an ancient chromosome fusion. Not only that, they represent functional sequence inside the genes. So there's plenty. We covered this last night. I'm sorry, they are simply not. I would like to have Jackson define exactly what you mean by evolution. I've done this thousands of times in my seminars. Evolution has 6 different meanings. They talk about life has evolved on Earth. Well, what do you mean by that? First, there'd have to be cosmic evolution, the origin of time, space, matter. They would like to skip this one and say that's not part of evolution because they don't have an answer for this. Where did time, space, and matter come from? But there is such a thing as cosmic evolution. There is no scientific evidence that time, space, or matter can create themselves out of nothing. Cosmic evolution is a religion. Then, if the Big Bang Theory happened, and you created hydrogen and maybe some helium and maybe a little bit of lithium, how do you get all the other elements? You have to have chemical evolution. All the elements would have to arise from hydrogen, helium, and lithium. I'd like to know how to make gold, silver, and platinum out of hydrogen. I'd like to learn that. Yeah. In the beginning, or at least following the Big Bang more than 14 billion years ago, there was hydrogen, some helium, and a little bit of lithium. Okay. How do you get gold, silver, and platinum? You have to have chemical evolution. Low mass elements were produced in the hot, extremely hot, dense region of the Big Bang. Baloney, but that's what they believe. So is that what you mean, Jackson, by evolution? Let me get up to the third one here. Then you'd have to have, by the way, you have a problem. You can't fuse past iron. Take all the energy in the universe to fuse past iron, I believe. Iron cannot be fused into anything heavier because of the insane amounts of energy and force required to fuse iron atoms. Okay, well, we do have stuff heavier than iron. Hello, a whole bunch of elements heavier than iron. So you have to have a chemical evolution stage in here. There's no scientific evidence the 92 elements can create themselves out of nothing. Chemical evolution's a religion. Thirdly, you'd have to have the stars and planets form. I know you guys want to skip all these, but they're part of your theory. You have to have them. Stellar evolution, the process by which a star forms. It's never been seen. Nobody's ever seen a star form. We don't know how a single one of these stars managed to form. They still don't. Why do stars evolve? They don't. The only thing we see is stars breaking down and burning up. We never see one form. Typical star exists for billions of years, and it burns out. Origin of stars is an unsolved problem. Yeah, it is. Stellar evolution. They say it happened. Well, nobody understands how it proceeds. Nobody's ever seen a star form. You guys have to have stars forming, a lot of them. How many stars are there in the universe? Whole bunch. 70 sextillion stars. There would have to be a whole lot of stars forming, 9.5 million every minute. We don't see any form. Bible says God made the stars. Okay, I go along with that. I'm not asking everybody to pay for that theory to be taught, but I believe that's true. The only logical estimate is, logical reason, God had to make it. So anyway, my time's up. 9.7 million new stars forming every minute. We've never seen one form. There's no scientific evidence for stellar evolution. Then you have to have the origin of life, organic evolution. So which one do you mean, Jackson, when you talk about evolution? Are you talking about, cover this in great detail on video number 4 of my series. Number 5, you'd have to have macroevolution, where an animal changes to another kind of animal. We never see that. It's imagination. You dream it happened. You think it happened. Bible says God made them after their kind. That's all we've ever seen. Nobody's ever seen any animal produce a different kind of animal ever. Right here. Nope. Yeah. Nowhere close to producing life in the laboratory. Anyway, my time is up. But the purpose of this debate tonight is for Jackson or anybody else to show where is the evidence, reasonable scientific evidence for evolution. And I would like to say this would include macroevolution and the first 4, cosmic, chemical, stellar, organic. There's no evidence for any of those. You guys have a religious belief. I think it's a dumb one, but you're allowed to have it. This is America, the land of the free and the home of the slave. You may have all the dumb religions you'd like, but stop calling it science and stop making me pay to put it in the school textbooks. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dino, for that opening statement. Gentlemen, that concludes the opening statements for the debate. Now we are moving into the rebuttal portion. And Jackson Roe, whenever you're ready, just make sure you unmute yourself. The floor is yours. And let's say up to 6 minutes, but of course you don't have to take the full 6 minutes, but up to 6 minutes. So go ahead, Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Well, the fact that there is any repetition of AAT, GGG in the chromosome 2 at all, I mean, it could be 10 sequences long. It would prove that this is a functional, I mean, it was once a functional telomere. So this is 700 sequences long. So that's quite a coincidence. I mean, it's reduced. But I was looking into how many chromosomes different species have, like seals, butterflies. They all have. Seals are obviously related to other species of seals, but they often have different number of chromosomes. Butterflies have it's crazy. It can be like 20 chromosomes. Some of them have like 100 chromosomes. But obviously all butterflies are related. I think even we would agree there. But evolution definition, I'm talking about biological evolution. But if you're talking about where elements came from, yeah, the first elements fused in stars. You can't fuse past iron. But in supernova, with that enormous amount of energy, you can make all the other elements. You can even make other elements, heavy elements in particle accelerators here on Earth, colliders here on Earth. But some that last they're so massive, they last for like milliseconds before they decay into lighter elements. But stellar and planetary formation, we do see stars forming. We've never seen the point of fusion happen, but we see cosmic eggs. I forget what that stands for, EGG, stellar eggs, forming in nebulas or stellar nebulas. And we see accretion disks around exoplanets, some young exoplanetary solar systems. So that's pretty much what I have written down. Not very long. We're keeping it short and sweet. So I'll just hand it back.
Okay, there we go. Let's see. Okay, I appreciate that. Jackson, world's fastest rebuttal. So there you go. We're going to hand it now to Ken Hovind. You've got up to 6 minutes, brother. The floor is yours.
All right. Oh, start the timer here. Well, thank you for coming on short notice here, Jackson. I appreciate that. It's our 5th debate, I think, and I'm going to have to get you converted. You make a good Christian when you get it straightened out. The textbooks do teach things like this, a tree of life that shows everything starting from a single-celled creature like an amoeba. There is no evidence for this. They draw these lines on paper. I debated Pelagia, got the real picture of him instead of the muscular cartoon character he makes of himself. But he wanted to skip the first 4 stages of evolution, which everybody wants to because they don't have an answer for how stars form. Seeing a cosmic egg, I'd like to see that thing hatch. No, there's a whole lot of stars out there. And you can say that a supernova would provide enough energy. Has it been observed? Science deals with what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Nobody's ever observed this happen. It's pure theoretical. So it's a religious belief. You're welcome to keep it, but stop calling it science. They tell the kids in school, which is what my concern is, that all the creatures are related. The origin of life. Look at this. Everything came from an amoeba. Nobody has ever seen an amoeba produce a non-amoeba. It's called the law of monophyly. Everything produces after its kind. There are no exceptions to that. I cover in my video, let's see, they bring forth after their kind. Stephen Bloom said, a single human cell, like a skin cell or liver cell, is far more complex than the space shuttle or than a nuclear submarine. Even more astounding is the fact that the billions of biochemical molecules inside cells act like incredibly intelligent beings with eyes, swim fins, and a brain. They just know where to go, just what to do, and just when to do it, and they do their thing in incredibly fast motion. The system that synthesizes proteins is unbelievably complex. 2,000 protein molecules are synthesized every second in every cell of your body, 24/7. If you could enlarge a cell to the size of a basketball court and you could open it up and watch it, you would see a constant and endless blur of activity. And yet you guys want to believe we all came from a single cell like a bacteria or an amoeba. And they draw these lines on paper connecting all the animals. They got the dogs and the pine trees and the starfish all related to a common ancestor. This is not science. This is a religion. You guys believe this stuff. You draw the lines on paper and the kids say, oh, it must be true. It's in my science book. No, it's not true. It is absolutely baloney. God said 20 times in the first 7 chapters of the Bible, the plants and animals would always bring forth after their kind. No farmer on the planet, on the history of the planet Earth, has ever seen a violation of that. I don't want to hear about a fossil you found, because you couldn't prove a fossil you found had any children. You sure couldn't prove it had children that were different. And why would you think some bones in the dirt are capable of doing something no animal today can do, produce other than its kind? Cows produce baby cows, horses make horses, donkeys make, jackass makes jackass, and they run for Congress. But the evolution theory is totally devoid of any scientific evidence. They draw these lines on paper. Look at this, boys and girls. You are related to a snail. I think this is not only stupid, I think it's dangerous to teach kids that. They're just an animal. Humans and chickens have a common ancestor with frogs. This is insane, but you guys believe it. The textbooks are full of these trees of life. I would like you to give Jackson tonight the best evidence you know of any animal or plant producing offspring that are different than the parents. It doesn't happen. So then you will appeal to time. Well, over these little changes we see over billions of years, no, that's not science. I'd like to see it observed, study, test, demonstrate. We raise chickens here. They always have baby chickens. There are two different kinds of beavers in the world. They might have had a common ancestor called a beaver. I don't know how many kinds of cows, 225 now, I think, different breeds of cows. Might have come from a cow. That's not proof for evolution. I don't see how you guys don't get it. Macroevolution is changing from one kind of animal to another. It takes place over tens of millions of years, said Carol. It doesn't take place at all. But even if it did take place over tens of millions of years, that puts it outside the realm of science. Macro processes take place in populations and genotypes of individuals. They say this stuff, but there's no evidence for it. My objection is you guys keep teaching it like it's a fact, and it's the dumbest theory in the world. No human, you find bones in the dirt, and you call it Australopithecine. Okay. Maybe there was a whole race of those just exactly like that, and they're now extinct. Extinction happens all the time. Plants or animals can go extinct. You don't know that those bones you found are related to anybody alive today. None. I'm sorry, I just don't see how you don't get it. All right, my time's up. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, I appreciate that 6-minute rebuttal there, Kent Hovind. That concludes the opening statements and the rebuttals. And now we are moving into the open discussion. We're going to keep this one topic at a time, discussing one line of evidence at a time. So, Jackson, what we're going to do is hand it over to you. I will be collecting questions from the audience. So please, again, make sure you're tagging me, guys, with your questions. And I'll make sure that we're spending no more than 10 minutes on each line of evidence. So Jackson, since Kent just ended with his rebuttal, let's hand it to you for the first question or point that you wanted to ask or make. Go ahead.
All right, I do want to ask kind of a series of questions that are all related to each other, not trick questions. I think we can agree that all octopus species share a common ancestor. Would you agree with that, Kent? You're on mute.
I'm muted here.
Oh, you're good now, Kent.
Okay, it still says, oh, I'm muted. Okay. I don't know how many octopus species there are. I would not give a quick blanket answer to that question, but let's, for the sake of the discussion, let's say there are 30 different varieties of octopus that might have come from 5 different common ancestors. I don't know that I could prove all octopus are related, but okay, let's assume they are. Go ahead. What's your next question?
All right, my next question would be, if octopus are related, are they then related to squid?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think octopus and squid can interbreed. I don't think there's any evidence they ever have. I think they're very different. I'd have to do some study on the anatomy of squid and octopus, but I know they draw lines on paper in the textbooks and claim they're related. I think I got a picture of them right here. Jellyfish, octopus. I don't see squid on there. So I'm going to say probably not. They might have a common designer named God, but they're not related.
Let's say, for the sake of argument, they were related. Would they then be related to the nautilus or the cuttlefish or other cephalopods? Are the cephalopods all related? I guess your answer would be no then?
Well, I don't think anything ever breeds outside of its kind. If you want to know if an animal, two animals are the same kind, ask the males of every species. They know how to find the female of their kind. They don't, we have horses up here. They're not the least bit interested in the pine trees. They're looking for a female horse only. They don't care about the female cow at all. So I think in most cases, the male of every kind can tell you if it's the same kind. Squirrels make baby squirrels, octopus make. I bet the octopus are not interested in the squid or the cuttlefish.
Well, I'm not arguing kinds. I'm just saying, are these potentially related? Like two octopus species may be related, but they can't interbreed.
Well, see, you guys are so worried about related. I don't think the animals care at all what we classify them as.
Well, sure, of course they do.
They couldn't care in the least bit. So we want to try to constantly put them into categories and clades and species and genus and all this kind of stuff. They don't care. I think it's a completely man-made, imaginary classification system. And we've decided to classify into plants and animals generally, and protista. And within there, we've got kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. That's a purely man-made, arbitrary dividing up of creatures. Then they don't care how we put them. I don't know. I don't think octopus and squid are related. I don't think maybe all the. Could somebody Google how many species of octopus are there, Matt? Find out.
I want to say it's like 200. I might be wrong about that.
Okay, sure. So God might have made 200 kinds of octopus, and they've been bringing forth after their kind ever since. 300 kinds of octopus. Okay.
300? Okay. All right. You asked me a question then. Let's move on from the octopus topic.
I would like to know, what evidence do you have of any animal producing offspring that are a different kind?
Well,
what would anybody say? Wow, that's a different kind. My children don't look like me exactly, but they're still human.
Sure.
I think your parents were probably human, and grandparents. I'd be willing to bet your great grandparents were human. And if you have any children, I'd be willing to bet $5 they're human.
Sure, but what if you go back a billion generations? What would it look like then?
Well, we can't go back, first of all. I think if we went back hundreds of generations, we'd come to Adam, and he was human. Far back as you can go. You can imagine something else if you want, but it's not science, it's not observable. And the purpose of this debate is for you to provide reasonable scientific evidence for evolution. I'd like to see that. What is your evidence?
Now, there is variation within each offspring. It doesn't look exactly like you, obviously, but you're never going to give birth to a totally different species right there. So that's not going to happen.
Right. There's a lot of variations, but the variations are limited. There are, I forget how many.
But
yeah,
small variations per generation, another generation, some variations, another generation, some variations, adds up over time. It may take a very long time, and I'm sure I'll appeal to time, but yeah, looking down the road, I think things will look different in the future.
Well, this is where, yes, variations happen, but they're limited. Apples, I forget, 1,100 varieties of apples have been produced now around the world, I think was the estimate. They're still apple. They run into a brick wall. You can't get off the apple tree. It's still apple. So if you want to believe these changes in apples can slowly turn it to a whale, that's a religious belief. It's not science. Yes, variations happen. Some pretty bizarre variations happen. There's all kinds of different people on the planet, different skin colors, different hair colors, different hair textures, different heights, tall ones, short ones. They're still human. They're still interfertile. Where is the example of a new kind being produced? I'll use the word kind. I got that in my video series. Let's see. Kind. Go ahead. You ask your next question.
Kind, like a canine giving birth to a feline, that's just never going to happen. So if that's your standard of evidence, that's an impossible goal to meet.
Well, no, I've never said that a canine gives birth to a sea lion. I don't think it happens even over billions of generations. It doesn't happen at all. 43. Definition of a kind. There's no definition of species.
Yeah.
Kind. The first definition of species. Second definition. Second definition of species is a kind or sort. Group of individuals that actually or potentially interbreed in nature. Okay. Biology, group of organisms that are able to interbreed, a kind or a sort. Kind, type, sort. Let's see. Where's the one that says scientists have 7 distinct definitions of species.
Yes,
and 27 variations. So what's a species?
Well, species can be confusing, but once you go up on the genus, it's almost always clear what that is. So
okay, so maybe genus is where the biblical kind is. Actually, maybe God doesn't care how we classify them or how Carolus Linnaeus classified them. Maybe they bring forth after their kind. But it's difficult to define the word species. It's hard to define because it's hard to tell when they can reproduce or not. So is the Chihuahua and the Great Dane the same kind of animal? Yeah, they're a dog. Can a Chihuahua interbreed with a wolf or a coyote or a dingo? I don't know. Maybe
if you force them, but I don't think they would.
Right. If you force them or artificial insemination. The point is, it's still a dog. Ask a 5-year-old. He'll say that's the dog kind. Ask the dog. The males will tell you if they're the same kind or not. So I don't see how you guys can imagine. That's why I wish you'd admit it is pure imagination that if we went millions of generations, these variations could lead to something new. I don't think they can, but even if they could, it's not observable science.
If we're leaving out genetics and fossils, then sure, we're basically left with imagination. And that's kind of the paradigm you're in right now, is you have to leave those two out.
I've said many times why you have to leave out all fossils. You could not prove in a court of law that fossil you found had any children. No human today can produce. No human today can produce non-human children. No apes can produce non-ape. No baboons produce non-baboon. Why do you think it was different in the past, or will be different in the future?
We're seeing a snapshot. We're not seeing an animal giving birth to another animal that's totally different. We're seeing a spectrum. Like here it was 40 million years ago. Here's what it looked like 10 million years later in this series. So we're not seeing something give birth to something totally different. That's what you're kind of.
I've never said they do, but that's why I say you guys imagine that if we had more time, it might change to something else. Okay, imagine all you want. That's not science. Look up the definition of science. It comes from the Latin word "seer." What do we know? We know cows produce cows. We know that. We do not know that cows and octopus are related if we went back billions of years. Evolution is a religion. You're welcome to have it, but it should not be included in public school curriculum at all. It's a waste of classroom time. It's detrimental to the education. And I think it's criminal to force kids to believe one religion like that over everybody else's religion. I think you guys you've succeeded in taking over the textbooks. Congratulations. But this doesn't mean it's true.
With textbooks, but
well, it doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it's science. A radical shift. Scientists are debating which species are most closely related and why. I don't think the species are debating this at all.
No, of course.
No animal on the planet is debating, wow, am I related to an octopus or a starfish? They don't care.
Yeah, we're the only species that's come to the conclusion that maybe everything's related. Nothing else is intelligent enough to make any kind of connection that with nature like humans have.
Well, Jackson, do you believe that your brain is a result of random mutations over billions of years and you came from an amoeba?
Well, I don't believe I came from an amoeba. It would have been, I know you don't like fossils, but it would have been something like an organism like Bacillum brazeri, which is the first known multicellular organism. So,
has anybody ever seen, you take bacteria or something which has a short generation time, say 20 or 30 minutes, some of them not that short, get married, grow up, have babies in 30 minutes. Has anybody ever seen a single-celled creature produce a two-celled creature? Are there any two-celled creatures in the planet? Not a symbiotic relationship, not a colony, a two-celled creature. Are there any?
Well, I know you disagree with this, but the algae experiments where they formed a cell membrane and formed a colony and reproduced by budding off multiple, basically became a multicellular organism from a single-celled organism. I know you've addressed that.
Wait, let me get your words down here. It became a multicellular organism, or was it a colony?
It was kind of both in a way.
Okay. And you believe that's enough evidence to make you believe these charts that show single-celled creature becoming elephants and whales and humans and starfish?
Well, that alone in itself, no, that wouldn't be enough evidence. But everything put together seems to point that way.
I think all the evidence points to exactly what God said would happen. They bring forth after their kind, after their kind, after their kind 20 times in the first 7 chapters. There's no exceptions to that. Now, nobody's ever seen it happen other than this. So to me, I think that's a scientific conclusion. Wow, maybe they always have. I used to raise hamsters. I sold them to pet stores. Every time they had babies, they were hamsters every time. No exceptions. Some short hair, some long hair. What now?
I used to breed salamanders.
Did you ever get anything other than a salamander?
I did not, unfortunately. That would have been pretty cool.
Well, maybe you're demonstrating the Bible is right. They bring forth
Well,
after their kind.
I'm not necessarily saying the whole Bible is wrong. I'm of the opinion that some of it could be true. There could be a Jesus. He could be the Son of God. Maybe that part is true, but I think if you read it word for word, it's not literally true, everything in it. But I am open to the idea that there is a God, but I think he would have used evolution.
I think that's a stupid God to use a process like that. It's certainly cruel.
Maybe.
Because if evolution is true, one animal has to evolve a little better than the rest, got a new improved variety. All the rest have to die to make this new one take over the population. This is Adolf Hitler.
They don't have to die.
Why not?
They don't have to die. That's how biodiversity works. I mean, if everything dies, you only have one species left. I mean, at the top. I mean, that's not how it works. It branches out. So,
but really, evolution is a religion of death. Creatures, if you get one improved animal in a population, it's now got a new improved, supercharger.
Well,
it has to find another one with the same improvement of the opposite sex in the same place at the same time in history. You have to have this happen trillions and trillions of times. It's never been observed once. Nobody's ever seen a cow produce a non-cow or come from a non-cow. But your charts show the tree of life with everything coming from an amoeba. I don't think that's science. I don't think it's logical. I don't think it's proper to teach that to all the kids. I think it's criminal. But if you want to believe it.
You frame it as a religion of death. I frame it as a scientific theory of life. So I think we're two completely different angles on this. You see it as this evil thing, and I see it as this kind of interesting thing that's how everything came to be.
And the title of the debate is, where is the scientific evidence for evolution? The textbooks show a tree of life like this, and I've got hundreds of textbooks beside me. I can show you a bunch of them if you'd like. This one has humans, there we are, and grizzly bears, and horses, and rhinoceros, and whales, and chickens, and butterflies coming from a single-celled creature. That isn't science.
Now, let me give one of my favorite examples that I like. It's the feathered dinosaurs. Now, do you think any theropod dinosaurs had feathers? Some creationists do believe that, and some don't.
I think that's an extremely dumb idea. There's no evidence at all that any dinosaur had feathers. The word dinosaur means terrible lizard. No reptile today has any feathers. And the idea that dinosaurs turned into birds is got to be, they keep looking for who can come up with the dumbest idea and get people to believe it. It's an endless competition, in my humble opinion. So no, I do not believe that at all. I think that the protein, as it decays and degenerates, can splinter out and fray. And somebody might say, oh, wow, frayed protein fibers. Look, feather. That's not a feather. I've got feathers.
There are impressions of pennaceous feathers that can't easily be explained by like collagen fibers. Unlike dinosaurs like Ceratosaurus, Wulong, Kaihong, especially Kaihong, they have pennaceous feathers that can't be explained by just frayed proteins.
Well, that's the first I've heard of that, and I'd be glad to see any evidence you've got. But if all you're finding is a fossil, and you realize it's almost all fossils are made in mud, the layers of mud that are packed on top are going to automatically, by capillary action, draw off filaments that would look like dendrite pattern feathers. But we can cover that another time. I'd have to get slides ready for that. That's it.
Yeah, I don't have slides for that.
This is an animal that's dead. Show me it happened today. Are there any reptiles today with feathers?
And Jackson, let me just jump in real quick, because that last 10-minute segment just ended. It's been fantastic so far. In the last 10-minute segment, I know there were a couple lines of evidence you brought up in your opening statement. The title of the debate, is there reasonable evidence for evolution? That type of evolution that would say whales and banana plants are related. Is there another line of evidence you kind of wanted to engage, specifically maybe something you brought up? Go ahead, gentlemen.
Well, let's talk about the telomere in the chromosome 2 again. Now, why are 700 repetitions of the AAT GGG not enough to prove that is in fact a telomere remnant?
Well, the article on ICR.org covers that in great detail. They're not. The fact that that 798 telomeres is gene lines of gene code is functional. It's used. It's necessary. Chromosome 2 is not two other chromosomes stuck together. It's designed to do exactly what it does. It's not.
Well,
You guys are so desperate for evolution evidence. You can't see you don't get it. Let's see. It's right here. Slide number. Here we go. Chromosome number 2 never happened. Let me get the highlights here. Slide number 114. Alt DV 114. Enter. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Evolutionists struggle to explain why humans have 46, apes have 48. They suppose the answer is from chromosome number 2. The alleged fusion site isn't connected to satellite DNA sequence like documented fusions are, and is too small and muddled to be the fusion of two chromosomes. The fusion site is located inside a gene and contains intricate coding functionality, soundly refuting fusion. The alleged cryptic centromere site is inside a large protein coding gene, further refuting the fusion idea. Human chromosome 2 fusion theory doesn't hold up to scientific scrutiny. You're welcome to believe that, but even then, that is just a tiny step of trillions of steps that have to be taken place to change an ape to a human. Why would we have less chromosomes? Why not more? Why did you mention the butterfly? Some have 20, some have 100. I don't know that all butterflies came from a butterfly. God might have made 50 kinds of butterflies. I know this, the butterflies know which kind to go after for mating.
Sure.
The monarchs don't go after the other kind that aren't monarchs.
I'm not particularly attracted to butterflies myself, so I see what you mean.
Good. So you probably, but I thought you might be related to one if you go back long enough.
Possibly.
Okay.
All right. Now, endogenous retroviruses. What do you have to say about what I said about that in the opening statement?
Well, endogenous retrovirus, the word endogenous means derived or originating internally. A retrovirus. A virus, a type of virus that has RNA instead of DNA as the genetic material. We covered this in great detail. Matt, was it last night or in a previous recent broadcast on Kent Hovind official YouTube channel? People assume virus means bad. No, it doesn't. The word virus comes from the word poison, but most of the viruses are good, and the endogenous retroviruses talk about have a function. They're not evidence for evolution at all. They're functional.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying all viruses are bad. I don't see how that's relevant to 98,000 of them being shared between humans and chimps. Whether they're good or bad, it doesn't really make a difference.
Sure. If we have 98,000 similar lines of code to a chimpanzee, let's pick that number and say it's true. Okay. What does that prove? Does that prove common ancestor or common designer? Same guy wrote the code. I mean, this code is really complex. I bet Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint have tens of thousands of identical lines of code. I bet when I'm in Microsoft PowerPoint and go to spell check, it takes me to the exact same lines of code that is if I was in Microsoft Word and click spell check. Similar lines of code, I agree. But you guys say, see, common ancestor. I say, no, the same guy's writing the code. His name is God. So it's a similar code is evidence of a creator, not evidence of an ancestor.
Well, it could be evidence of a creator that used evolution.
As I've said, that would be a dumb creator. Doesn't he know what he wants? Why not make it right first time? See, I think God made it right first time and man messed it up.
He made it right the first time until he didn't, and he flooded the world. According to the literal story.
He made it right, man messed it up, then he flooded the world and gave him a second chance. And now he's going to come again and judge the world and give you another chance.
Because we messed up.
You better hurry and get on board.
Time.
Why no?
Because we messed up a second time?
Because we're messing up. God didn't mess up.
Well, surely he saw it coming.
Oh, yeah, he saw it coming. But he loved us enough to say, I'm going to make them anyway. Just like when you get married, you say, well, we're probably going to have some problems, probably not going to be perfect, but I love you. Well, let's try to make it work. God made man, knowing man, but he had to give man a free will. He didn't want a robot to go around saying, I love you, God, I love you, God. I don't want to marry a wife that's a robot. I want one that says, look, I want to be your wife. I want to love you. And so I think God wants us. You don't have to serve him if you don't want to. And apparently you don't want to. I want to. I've chosen. I believe God made the world. I want to serve him.
Well, if there was a God, I would definitely serve him. But I don't see that there necessarily is one, but also about marriage. I'm too weird to be married, so that's just going to be how it's going to be.
Okay, let me jump in here, gentlemen. As we come up at the hour mark, I do have a ton of fantastic questions from the audience. I just want to make sure, Jackson, looks like we discussed the lines of evidence that you brought up: fossils, ERVs, the fusion. So unless there's any final points pertaining to the topic itself, evidence for evolution, we could move into concluding statements. What do you think, Jackson?
Yeah, we can move into concluding statements if you want.
Okay, let's do, let's say 5-minute concluding statements, wrap up our points and thoughts, and then we'll have a really, really solid audience Q&A because we got some fantastic questions. So let's start with you, Jackson Roe. Take up to 5 minutes, then we'll do the same for Kent.
All right. It's a short notice debate, but I think it went pretty good. I always like these debates with Kent. I always keep it cordial, unlike a lot of the people who debate him. I don't know why they can't keep it cordial, but anyway. Yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence for evolution. I think we brought up a lot of lines of evidence, but Kent basically says, well, fossils and genetics basically don't count. So you're basically left with little things here and there after that, and imagination. So, and lines on paper. But anyway, yeah, fun debate. I'm ready to get to the questions, and then I got places to be. This is so short notice. So.
Okay, Jackson, thank you for your concluding statement. We're going to hand it over to Kent. Kent, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead whenever you're...
Well, thank you, sir. I like the way they always say you have to accept evolution. No, you have to believe in evolution. You can only accept something that is observable, scientifically accurate. I accept the fact that cows can jump. I'll accept that. Cows can jump. They can be trained to jump. Since I accept the fact that cows can jump, evidence for this is overwhelming. Cows can jump. Therefore, since I accept the fact that cows can jump, this proves beyond a reasonable doubt that given enough time, a cow could jump over the moon. This is what Jackson's doing. He sees little variations and thinks, therefore, it could jump over the moon. No, it can't. The little variations you see are limited. So all we've ever seen with evolution is variations within the kind, 250 recognized breeds of cows. They probably had a common ancestor called a cow. There are 6 different types of corn kernels. They might have had a common ancestor called corn. 200 varieties of wheat might have had a common ancestor called wheat. 4,000 varieties of potatoes might have come from a potato. 339 recognized breeds of dog probably had a common ancestor called a dog. 339 recognized breeds by the American Kennel Association or whoever that is, okay? I accept the fact dogs can produce varieties of dogs, but they're still dog. God said they'd bring forth after their kind. I think all the scientific evidence points to that being correct. That's all we've ever seen. And science deals what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. They can't even make it happen in the laboratory. Crossbreed your dogs and get a pine tree. I'd like to see that, okay? Charlie Darwin wrote a book called The Origin of Species, in which he never did discuss the origin of species. But that word species is a flexible, nebulous term. A bunch of different definitions I showed you a minute ago. God said they bring forth after their kind. Microevolution is a lousy word. We should not use it, but they do. But that is variations within the kind. That one has been observed. So the definition of the word evolution is variation. He hasn't given any evidence for variations above what anybody would call microevolution. Pesticide resistance, herbicide resistance, it's still the same kind of plant or animal. It doesn't change anything. You can spray the roaches until they become resistant to the spray. They're still a roach every time. So I don't understand how people can be taught or brainwashed into believing everything is related because of these little variations. We see all these varieties of dog and therefore conclude that dogs are related to mosquitoes. I don't understand how anybody can believe such a thing. Sure, there's varieties of potatoes. That doesn't prove they're related to a whale. But you guys want to put these charts in the textbook and say, see, kids, everything's related. I think it's propaganda. I think it's child abuse. I think it's criminal to lie to kids and say that we have evidence that potatoes and whales are related. We do not have any such evidence. I think it's an attempt to refute what God clearly said they'd bring forth after their kind. If you have a hatred for God and don't believe his Bible, okay, go enjoy life. But don't teach it like it's part of science, and don't make me pay to have all that taught to all the kids. That's what's happening now. Everybody's forced to teach your religion in the schools. I resent that. Anyway, thank you for coming again, Jackson. We're going to get you straightened out. So I'm ready for Q&A from the audience too. I'm tired.
I appreciate the concluding statements, Kent and Jackson. I will say that debate was a ton of fun, fantastic discussion, very fast paced, and we've had a great chat with a ton of great questions. So let's get some of these questions in, and as we always do, whoever the question is for, let's just make sure that they get the last word, and that way we can move along smoothly. Okay, here we go. First question that comes in is from, and I'm just going to get it up on screen here, from Bill Morgan. So Bill Morgan, good to see you, and I appreciate the question, brother. The question is for Jackson. So he says, on a scale of 1 to 99, 99 being most certain, how certain are you that life originated from non-life by natural means, and why do you believe that? Go ahead, Jackson.
Well, I'll just say, not on a scale of 1 to 99, but I'll say I'll give it a 50-50 chance that either a God made the first cell or the first cell evolved on its own. That's basically my answer. Pretty short and simple.
So a 50-50 shot, you're saying?
50-50 shot, because it's hard to, it's a blurry field at the moment.
Okay, Jackson, thank you for your response. Over to you, Dr. Dino, if you had anything you wanted to add.
From 1 to 99, I'd give it a 99.9, that it didn't happen, it can't happen. Nobody's ever been able, if they could make life in the laboratory, all that would prove is it takes intelligence to make life. Hello, I'm certain the first life form had to be created, and he created them to bring forth after their kind, and they've been doing it ever since. Bacteria have always been producing bacteria and nothing else. Frogs produce frogs, nothing else, ever, in the history of observable science. So I'm 100% certain there is no evidence for evolution, none.
Okay, thank you, Kent, for that response. Jackson, quick final word?
I don't really have anything to add.
Okay, well, whoops. Here's the next question that comes in, and this one comes in from Mama's YouTube channel. Question for JR. So that would be you, Jackson Roe. So she asks, this looks like it pertains to the chromosome 2 fusion, or so-called. Explain the fact that so-called telomeric repeats, so those apparent telomeric-like repeats found at the site, how do you explain the fact that they are functional DNA elements that are found all throughout the genome and have nothing to do with a fusion itself? Jackson, go ahead.
Well, if I understand the question right, you guys attribute function to it couldn't have evolved, or like all ERVs must be functionless, or
well, no. If I could, Jackson, just to reiterate it in another way. Okay. She's saying that the so-called evidence for the fusion, where you guys look to those telomeric-like repeats to say that they are the remnants of the so-called fusion. Dr. Jeffrey Tompkins, a PhD geneticist, he's discovered that those remnants are not actually remnants. They're functional DNA elements involved in gene expression. So the argument is essentially these have nothing to do with the fusion. There was no fusion. What are your thoughts on that, Jackson?
I haven't heard too much about that, so I can't really speak too much on it. Again, this is short notice, so
okay.
I'll just leave it, see what Kent has to say and respond.
Over to you, Kent, brother.
Well, I think he's right. Jeffrey Tompkins is right that this is functional DNA, and nobody didn't even discover DNA till the last 100 years. So it's we still don't have microscopes to see all the details. Nobody's ever seen an atom yet. We don't even know their most powerful microscope. So I think the complexity of a single cell is mind-boggling. The more we study a cell and the components of the cell and the DNA, the more you ought to fall on your knees and say, wow, God, you are so smart. But you don't want to do that, Jackson. I don't mind doing that at all. I don't mind falling on my face saying, God, you're amazing. You're God. Thank you for being so smart. Thank you for letting me live. I don't have a problem doing that at all.
Thank you, Dr. Dino, for that response to a fantastic question here. Jackson, did you want the final word, given that it was your question?
Well, I'll just say we have actually imaged, I haven't, but they have imaged atoms directly. They just look like little blurry dots, but yeah, they have actually imaged them. But yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, thank you for the engagement on that question. Gentlemen, next question comes in from ComCal Ministries, and the question again is for you, Jackson. Short and sweet. He asks, Jackson, do you believe or do you really think you came from a rock? Or if you wanted to answer it another way, does evolutionary theory propose that we came from rocks, essentially? Go ahead.
Well, no. I mean, it doesn't really matter how life arose for evolution to be true or not. But no, I don't think it's rocks that we came from. I think that's just an oversimplification.
Thank you, Jackson. And over to you, Kent, if you had a response at all.
The evolution theory clearly teaches the Earth began as a hot ball of rock. As it cooled down, it began to rain, and it rained on the rocks for millions of years and turned them into soup, and the soup came alive. I show that many times in my seminar. That's exactly what the books teach. Jackson, you do believe you came from a rock. Just admit it. I don't see how you guys can drive on the highway that's made out of your ancestors. Show some respect, for heaven's sake.
It's kind of cruel when you think about it that way. But
yeah.
It's a theory of life, though, you said earlier, Jackson.
It's a theory of life, yeah. But we're driving on our ancestors. But anyway.
Yep.
But no, we came from prebiotic chemistry. I mean, it's not the same as, say, a stone giving birth to a cell. It's not that simple.
Okay, let's go to the next question. We'll give you the last word on that one, Jackson, because the question was for you. And the chat's coming at you, Jackson. So I appreciate you being a good sport.
Yeah.
You're in the lion's den. So another question for you there, Jackson. This comes from Smoke the Ghost. He says, Don, can you ask Jackson why single cells could evolve millions of years ago, but they can't evolve now?
Like, why aren't cells evolving today, I guess is what he's asking.
Or even a single-celled like ancestor into a multi-celled ancestor, maybe?
I'll answer it from that angle, from the first angle. Because microorganisms are basically eating all this prebiotic chemistry that would have taken a long time to form anything. So once the life got started, it's basically canceling out any other life from arising. It's basically the simplest way I can put it.
Okay, and over to you, Ken.
I don't think we've ever seen any cell evolve ever. Bacteria produce bacteria. Every single-celled creature, multi-celled creatures, they all produce after their kind, exactly what God said would happen. That's all we've ever seen. So they claim rocks got rained on, turned to soup, the soup came alive, and that first cell somehow learned to reproduce itself, a pretty amazing thing. And it learned how to make something other than itself. That's what the theory says. It's not science. I think it's ridiculous.
Okay, I appreciate the responses from both you. And the next question here, since we have a ton, let's see, why don't we go with a question for Kent, if I can find one in here. Okay, here's one. So this one comes in from Ray AI. I'll put it up on screen. $5 super chat. Ray, thank you for the support and question. So he asked, question for Kent. How did all the animals and humans repopulate the earth so quickly after the flood? Common question.
Great question and legitimate question, but compared to what the evolutionists believe, that everything came from an amoeba, which came from a dot of nothing exploding. I mean, we don't have a problem at all. Creationists don't. The Bible says God told Noah to bring 2 of each kind onto the ark, 7 of some, the clean animals, but 2 of each kind, in whose nostrils was the breath of life. So during the flood, the fish would have plenty of water fish didn't go on the ark. The fish kept growing and populating the world, and during probably even more so there'd be a whole lot of fish fossils found because of the flood. So, and also insects weren't required to go on the ark because they don't have nostrils. They breathe through spiracles in their skin. This current estimate by baraminology.com, baramin is the Hebrew word for kind, Bearmanology.com says there are probably 8,000 kinds of animals that would be necessary to start all the different varieties we have today. Could you, from 2 horses with selective breeding, get all the different horses today? I was mentioning one time in a seminar that there are 339 breeds of dogs. A lady raised her hand. She said, Brother Hovind, my family has been in the dog kennel business for 100 years, 4 generations. She said, I can promise you within 100 years, if you gave us 2 generic mutts, just pick any 2 mutts out of the pound, we could, through selective breeding in 100 years, create all the breeds of dogs today, Great Dane to Chihuahua, in 100 years. This is with man manipulating, selective breeding. In nature, I think the animals coming off the ark would spread out, and those that lived in cold climate, those that have a thicker fur are more likely to survive, and those that have a thinner fur are more likely to die. So natural selection would work to create the 8 different varieties of bears: polar bears, brown bears, black bears, grizzly bears, probably within a few hundred years. So I don't think that's a problem at all. If it is any problem, it's so minor compared to the evolutionist problem of bringing all the animals from a rock. I think that's a problem.
Thank you for that thorough answer to a great question, Kent. Over to you, Jackson, if you had a response. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, in 4,400 years, it's really not possible. I'll use an example I've used before, but the Bolitoglossa genus of salamanders, there are 130 species. They take 10 years to reach sexual maturity, and there are billions of them, 130 species. And they're distributed only in central and northern half of South America. First of all, they would have taken a while for them to get there. Then they would have had to have reproduced and diversified into 130 species from that genus, in that genus. And then you have to get billions of them. And I actually have 2 of them over here in an enclosure, some of the last in the country. They're really hard to take care of. But anyway, that's kind of beyond the point. But yeah, so it's really not possible.
Okay, thank you, Jackson. And Dr. Dino, the question was for you, brother, so we'll give you the last word.
Well, I'm not sure about the salamander thing. Let's see. How did all the animals get? Okay. He mentioned how did they get there to South America. I think anybody that studies geology at all would understand, or earth science that I taught for 15 years. The earth has oceans that have 2 parts to them, 2 very distinct parts. They have the deep part called the abyss and the shallow part around all the continents called the continental shelf. If you lowered the oceans about 100 feet, and they average 12,000 feet deep, if you took 100 feet of water out of the oceans and froze it and stick it on the poles, i.e. enlarge the ice caps. We know the ice caps were much larger at one time in the past, clear down to Kansas City, Missouri, okay? So by freezing that water, sticking it on the poles, that lowers the ocean level, and now all the continental shelves are part of the continent. They're exposed. If you look between England and France, the English Channel that our soldiers fought across, it's about 100 feet deep from here to the road right there. It's not bad. Between Russia and Alaska, the water is 60 feet deep for thousands of miles. All you'd have to do is lower the ocean 100 or 200 feet. Everything is connected. So I think after the flood, during the flood of Noah, the ice caps were huge. And over the next few hundred years, they gradually melted back, which is going to raise the ocean level. And that's why we have a continental shelf, because that used to be the beach line out there. Just Google continental shelf. It's around everything. Between Vietnam and Australia, the water averages about 30 feet deep. Oh, get over here where you can see it. There we go. Okay. So it's simple. If you lower the oceans, the continents are bigger. And we know the ice caps were much bigger in the past, so it's very simple. Just type in continental shelf around the Philippines, for example. So how did the kangaroos get to Australia? They hopped. That's how they get everywhere. Okay, go ahead.
I appreciate that final word there, Kent, on a good question. So you guys are making this a fun debate. We've got a great chat right now. So here's the next question that comes in from Brandon McGavin, $10 super chat. And Jackson, it is for you. So he asks, Jackson, can you explain how the termite and its parasite that's inside evolved without creation?
Not really. I'm not really familiar with the example, so I can't speak too much on it. Maybe Kent's familiar with it.
Yep, Steve. Explain how the termite and its parasite that's inside evolved without creation. I think almost every creature has things inside of it. As long as you're healthy, you can tolerate them and have a symbiotic relationship. There's all kinds of bacteria in our gut. If you're not healthy, that can become deleterious, and you could be sick from something, from not being able to maintain a good balance. So I think everything was designed to be in a symbiotic relationship. You know, the right hand and the left hand put together, pretty cool. That's pretty neat. Wonder how long that took to happen, of millions of years of chance. So I would stick with the evidence that all I've ever seen is really cool evidence of design. I'd say somebody took some clay out of the ground and designed a coffee cup. Didn't happen by itself. Pretty cool. Got a handle, you can hold it. It holds liquids inside. This is design out of clay. I think God can take clay and design a human with a lot more features than a coffee cup.
Thank you, Kent, for that response. And Jackson, are we moving on to the next question, or did you want a final word?
I'll just say that parasites are a strange design. That's all I really have to add.
Okay, here we go. Next question comes in from Jeremy Wong. I appreciate the question there, Jeremy. And this one is for you, Kent. Looks like it's a follow-up to some of the points made on the previous question about the repopulation of humans and species after the flood. So he asks, kangaroos are only found in Australia. Why don't we find kangaroo bones showing the migration from the flood area to Australia itself?
Well, first, I think nearly all fossils were formed during the flood. Many animals died today, probably millions worldwide. None are going to fossilize. Nobody sees fossilization happening now. So to ask a question like, why don't we see fossils of the animals moving from the ark out to anywhere is ridiculous. We're not going to find fossils of anything post-flood. Animals don't fossilize. Extremely rarely that they fossilize at all. So I think during the flood, trillions of fossils were formed, and there's been hardly any formed since then. But as I mentioned, during the flood, the ice caps were much larger, and continental shelf was much exposed. By raising the ice cap, or by enlarging the ice caps, everything, I got it all slides here someplace, of Australia. So kangaroos are only found alive, other than zoos, etc., in Australia. Sure. Kangaroos are less aggressive than other animals. I think if they were getting off the ark and they're competing for real estate, okay, the lions and the kangaroos probably wouldn't live too long together. The kangaroo would say, forget it, you can have it, I'll move on somewhere else. So I think there was probably a migration wave after the flood, and the animals had to move away and into whatever area they're comfortable with. And so by the time they're moving away, say it took 100 years, or 1,000, or 200 years for the kangaroos to migrate to Australia over a couple generations. At the same time, the ice caps are melting and the continental shelf is being submerged. So pretty soon they end up protected, trapped on Australia, which is now an island, but Australia used to be a peninsula. Here, I found it. Yay. Slide number 442, Alt-DV 442. Here's a satellite view of England and Ireland next to France. The water is not very deep. There it is between Russia and Alaska. If you lowered the water 100 feet, there's the ocean out there. All of Central America would be covered if you raised the ocean. That's another story. But all around Florida, you can walk out 100 miles before it gets 200 feet deep. 200 feet is, not far. So I think after the flood, the ice caps melting would raise the ocean levels. Then it would eventually spill over between Florida and Cuba and fill the Gulf of Mexico. Pensacola Bay, Mobile Bay, 7 feet deep. There it is, Australia to Vietnam, continental shelf. Just Google it. So I think kangaroos, are kangaroos dying in Australia today? Yeah. Are there any of them leaving any fossils? No. They get eaten and scattered around by the scavengers. So fossilization only happened, or nearly all of it happened because of the flood, isn't happening anywhere in any significant numbers right now. Okay.
Very thorough answer, Kent. I appreciate these slides, and great question, Jeremy Wong. So Jackson, anything you wanted to add to that?
My answer is going to be short. It's just to his question. It's because kangaroos didn't migrate from Turkey. And that's all.
Hey, Jackson, a final word from you at all, Kent?
I did not understand a thing he said, but okay, no, I'm done.
Okay. Okay, let's move on here. So this one comes in from Cover to Cover Book Reviews. And Jackson, this one's for you. So he asks, you asked if a canine can give birth to a feline. At some point in the past, didn't a dinosaur give birth to a bird, according to evolution? Jackson, the floor is yours.
No, that's what I'm trying to say. Nothing gives birth to something radically different, but there is variation between each generation, and over a long time, that adds up in a population. So that's how it works. It's not just one thing giving birth to another.
Okay, thank you for the response there, Jackson. And Dr. Hovind, over to you.
Well, Jackson is correct that it would take many generations if it happened at all. But I'm saying there's no evidence for it ever happening at all. I think all the dinosaurs ever gave birth to were baby dinosaurs. All the birds have ever given birth to baby birds. Cows produce cows. Our sheep up here had 2 lambs last week. Within 2 minutes, those baby lambs, I was there when one was born. Within 2 minutes, it was standing up looking for the dinner table. How does it know? How does it know which end of mama has dinner? It knows. It just knows. So I think it's amazing design. I can sit there and watch a lamb be born, wobble around for a minute, stand up and sniff around and go find mama's boobs to get some milk and say, wow, God, you are amazing. I don't have a problem praising God for his creation. I love studying science. I'm sad that evolution is stuck in our textbooks, polluting them with this dumb religion. Get it out of there. It's nothing to do with science.
Thank you for the response there, Kent. Jackson, quick final word.
No, nothing to add.
Okay, here we go. This next one comes in from Aiden. And again, question is for you, Jackson. So he says, are there objective morals? And if everything is subjective, do you believe there is no distinction between right and wrong?
Well, it's subjective in a sense, but it's kind of set by cultures. So, I mean, if you do the wrong thing in a certain culture, you're going to get your head chopped off. If you do the wrong thing in another culture, you're going to get in prison for 5 years. It's really dependent on what culture you're living in, what morals you're going to have. But everyone seems to agree that killing people is wrong, stealing stuff is wrong. Let's not kill each other. Let's not take each other's stuff. That's pretty much the golden rule.
Okay, Jackson, appreciate the response. Dr. Hovind, anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, then would Jackson believe that in Muslim countries, since it is their culture to kill anyone who disagrees with their prophet, that they should be killed? If they do take over America, are you going to follow their prophet or willingly submit to have your head cut off? I mean, is there such a thing as right and wrong? I've asked atheists all over the world, how do you tell right from wrong? Where's your standard? I'd like to know. If it goes country by country, then you're just going by majority opinion. Whoever controls the country, whoever's got the biggest stick, they make the rules. Is there an absolute standard for humanity? And what I understood from your answer is no. It varies from nation to nation. I think that's dangerous, real dangerous.
It can be dangerous because if the wrong culture takes over, we're going to be in the Stone Age again. So, I mean, I would fight against, like, say, ISIS took over the country. I would not submit to their standard of morality. But that's basically what I'll say.
Okay, as we start to wind down here, as we agreed upon, we're going to wrap it up at the hour and a half mark. So we got a few minutes left to get a couple more questions in. I like these long audience Q&A sessions. We get a lot of good questions coming in. So thank you to the audience for being so engaged in the debate. This next one comes in from Sean Mock, and this one is for you, Dr. Dino. He asks, when do you think carnivores started to prey on animals?
After the flood, God told Noah he could eat meat now. If you read the story in the Bible, God told all the animals and all the people before the flood started, in the original creation, he said, you're going to eat fruit, vegetables, and seeds. Everything was vegetarian. After the flood, if you read Genesis chapter 9, I got the answer somewhere. If I had more time, I could call it up. My seminar part 7, if you watch my video series. After the flood, God said, Noah, now you can eat meat. You don't have to, but you can if you want to. And it's perfectly fine if you want to eat meat, and I do, okay? I only eat vegetarian cows, though, okay? The cow has to be a vegetarian before I'll eat it, right? So, and I had part of one tonight. So I think that animals, probably after the flood, spreading out around the world, became, no lion has to eat meat. They can live on vegetation, like Little Tyke did in the English London Zoo during World War II. They didn't have any meat because they were giving it all to the soldiers. So it learned to live on plants, fruit, and vegetables. Didn't like it at first, but there have been animals that only live on vegetation that most people say that's a carnivore. They can live on vegetation if they're forced to. But I think that changing from a plant-eating lion to a meat-eating lion is a minor change compared to going from a rock to a lion. That's a very minor change, okay? So I think it happened probably after the flood over many generations.
Thank you for that response, Dr. Dino. Vegetarian cows, yes, make for the best burgers. So glad you had a good dinner tonight. And Jackson, over to you. Anything you wanted to add to that question?
Yeah, I'll just say that microbes been eating other microbes for billions of years. That's what I think. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, and Kent, did you want a final word there?
No, that's it. More questions.
Okay, here we go. Next one comes in from Forkakong. Okay, so we got it up on screen here. This one's for you, Jackson Roe. And the questioner asks, why haven't the crocodilians and sharks evolved significantly over the past millions of years? Essentially referring to the existence of stasis in the fossil record. Go ahead.
Sure, they've been similar to their current form for quite a long time, but sharks evolved from acanthodian fish, and crocodilians evolved from things like Protosuchus. Just Google what that looks like. It looks sort of like a crocodilian, but not really. It's very weird. But anyway, that's my answer.
Okay, thank you, Jackson. And over to you, Kent.
I don't think anybody's ever seen a crocodile produce a non-crocodile. You can imagine it came from something else if you'd like, but that's SpongeBob imagination. That's not science. I don't think sharks ever came from anything but mama and daddy shark. There are no exceptions. Nobody's ever seen a shark produce a non-shark or a crocodile produce a non-crocodile. It's a purely religious belief to believe anything other than that. And I resent that being taught in the schools at taxpayer expense.
Thank you, Kent, for that response. So this question here, Jackson. Oh, I'm sorry, Jackson. You want a quick final word?
No, it's all right.
Okay, so this one's from Jeremy Nolan. And he says, question, I believe it's for you, Jackson. If the sedimentary rocks that bury the animals that turn to fossils are much older than the fossils, how can you get a correct date if rocks are older than the fossils?
Well, that's why they date igneous rock and not sedimentary rock. They date igneous layers in between to get a rough age of how old the fossil is between two igneous layers. So that's it.
Okay, over to you, Ken.
Okay, the entire geologic column that they teach is pure insanity. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world. They keep saying the layers of the earth are different ages, and they've got names, Cenozoic, Mesozoic, Paleozoic, Archaeozoic, and Jurassic, Triassic, Mississippian, Devonian, Silurian. I taught it for 15 years. I understand it pretty well. It doesn't exist anywhere, nowhere. They say the top layer is younger. I say, stop and think. Where's this top layer coming from? Outer space? What do you mean the top layer is younger? Every speck of dirt on the planet is the same age. Whether it's 6,000 or 6 trillion, it's the same age. It either all formed by God creating it, or it all formed from a big bang creating it. But either way, it's every speck of dirt is the same age. Rearranging it, moving it from here to here with the shuffling it around and floods and stuff like that doesn't change the age of it. So there's no such thing as a Jurassic period. There's no such thing as a Mississippian or Devonian. There's no such thing as a geologic column. The whole thing is baloney. All over the world, petrified trees are found standing up, connecting all the layers. Watch my video number 6. I show 20 pictures of them. Yellowstone has a fence around one so nobody takes pieces off of it. With me standing next to it in my picture. I'm not there now, but petrified trees standing up, running through these layers. The whole geologic column is a joke. It's somebody up in hell is laughing at people for believing such a dumb thing. So there's no such thing as all the sedimentary rocks that buried the animals turned to fossils. I think nearly all that happened at the flood. They might today give some kind of different date because of the minerals they're buried in. I think you could take one sample, break it up into 6 pieces, send it to 6 laboratories, and get 6 different numbers. I think that's been done. So no, I disagree completely. I don't think let's see. I don't think any fossils are older than any other ones. I think nearly all of them formed at the time of the flood. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kent, for that response. Jackson, over to you.
Not really anything to add, no.
Okay, let's as we wind down here.
We've kind of had that debate before, the geologic column debate. People can just go and watch that one. We talked in depth about that. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. As we come up to the hour-and-a-half mark, this will be the last question. I want to make sure we get in the super chats. Lots of fun during this audience Q&A. Kent and Jackson, thank you so much for making this a memorable debate. So this one comes in from Rune Norderhog, and Rune is one that sent in a request, and we'll be taking the Evolution Debate Challenge probably in April. So we'll be looking forward to that. And Rune has a question for you, Dr. Hovind. Looks like it's about diatoms. Considering how many diatoms would have died during the flood, I'm just reading this word for word. While there would be some variation, I'm guessing, why don't we find diatomaceous earth in more places?
I was in Lompoc, California. I lived in Central California for 3 years. Praise God, I'm out of there. But the Lompoc, California has a diatomaceous earth quarry. I just flashed. I got 45,000 pictures in my seminar, but I cover that on my video number 6 about the diatomaceous earth. Let me, if I can call it up real quick. Let's see, right here. I think the crust of the earth cracked open at the time of the flood, and it created fault lines all over the place, which we still have, fault lines all over the place. As the hot water that was inside the earth, look at this, I went right to it. I don't believe it, okay? As the hot water that was inside the earth came shooting out, it would kill all the diatoms within an effective radius, maybe of 20 miles or something. Then as the hot water hits the regular water, it's going to only kill things within a certain radius. So I think you'd find diatoms buried in huge, thick layers. I got a picture of me. Here we go, right there. Diatomaceous earth quarry, 267, Alt-DV, 267, enter. A whale fossil was found standing on its end, 80 feet long, in diatomaceous earth. Whales, dolphins, trillions of fish, even pterodactyls have been found preserved in diatomaceous earth. This is the layer that they mine at the diatomaceous earth quarry in Lompoc, California, and it splits up and it contains billions and billions of fossils squeezed in between these layers. I think the only explanation for this, only logical explanation, is that it's right on the San Andreas Fault. Hot water came shooting out, killed everything within 20 miles. It snowed to the bottom and packed them into layers. Diatomaceous earth contains, I'm going to use the word trillions of fossils, fish fossils found in diatomaceous earth. I think the chalk cliffs of Dover, England, same thing. They formed right because they're right near a fault line. That's where the Bible says the fountains of the deep broke open. The water that was in the crust of the earth came to the surface and flooded it. So I think that the only logical explanation for the huge chalk cliffs or diatomaceous cliffs, I'm not sure where diatomaceous earth is found all over the world, never Googled that, but I'm not sure we've looked everywhere for that matter. I mean, there's enough of it in Lompoc to satisfy the whole world. So maybe that's enough. So I think during the first few months of the flood, dead animals settled out, were buried. Swirling waters from the flood would make great piles of dead plants and animals. This would make the coal, the fossil graveyards over the next few hundred years. You can make layers in a hurry with these little sand dart things. It doesn't take long. Make 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 layers. I think the flood would do that all over the place and cause multiple layering to happen. And as the water's moving back and forth because of the tide, the fossils are going to form horizontally, not vertically. They've done lots of studies on this. There's an experiment called Experiments in Stratification. You can Google that. A French guy with a name about that long did a study showing how the fossils, the layers form 7 or 8 or 10 at a time sideways. You could have a fossil on top that's actually older than a fossil at the bottom because they're forming horizontally. Watch Experiments in Stratification. Took place at the laboratory in Lompoc, in Colorado, at the big Navy base has a place in Colorado where they do studies of sedimentation rates. So underwater landslides could cause that kind of stuff. Anyway, go ahead.
Dr. Dino, I appreciate that thorough response, and as always, we really love the visuals. So, great audience Q&A. Actually, I apologize, Jackson. Anything you wanted to add to that as we wind down?
Yeah, I'll just say, like coccolithophores, things that form limestone, live in the first 400 feet of water, I believe, the photic zone. And for all of them to be killed and form all the limestone we see, I mean, there's a limestone deposit in Israel and into Egypt that's 5 kilometers thick. That's a lot to form all at once. That's all I'll say.
Thank you, Jackson. And Kent, did you want a final word there?
No, the Bible says at the end of time in 2 Peter chapter 3, there would be scoffers who walk after their own lust, who are ignorant, willingly ignorant of the creation and the flood and the coming judgment. They don't understand the creation. What was it like? Why did they live to be 900? They don't understand the flood of Noah. What would that do? And they sure don't understand the coming judgment of God. I feel sorry for them.
Okay, gentlemen, that concludes the debate and the audience question and answer. 90 minutes does fly by. I appreciate the time from the both of you. Why don't we have some quick final thoughts, final words, starting with you, Jackson. Jackson, thank you for taking the challenge tonight, especially on short notice. Some final words?
Yeah, I hope I did all right. Most of the other guys have been doing not so good, in my opinion. But I've been basically excommunicated from the atheist community because I'm nice to you guys. That's kind of forbidden. But yeah, but I enjoy these debates. We can do some more of them sometime. But yeah, I've got to go to a friend's house, so we need to wrap it up here soon. I mean, take as long as you need, Kent. But anyway,
okay, well, thank you for being nice, Jackson. Tell the atheists they're welcome to be nice or mean. I don't care. They're wrong. God made the world. Okay, so.
Nice or mean, they're wrong. I like that.
And if they do, I'll kick you out. We'll welcome you into the creationist community. Might as well be on the right side anyway.
You're always welcome on the right side there, Jackson. So again, great debate. Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Jackson. We will let you guys get going here. And I'm going to stick around for a bit just to go over a few announcements. So I'll be back in about a minute, and I'll let these gentlemen get going. So again, thank you so much, Kent and Jackson, and we will see you later. Okay, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Another one in the books. That now makes for 167 debates that we've hosted here on this channel. Debates on all sorts of topics. Great job to our wrenches and mods in the chat. I appreciate you guys keeping the chat respectful and sophisticated, just like the debate. I had a ton of fun during this debate. Lots of great discussion on some of my personal favorite topics as well. Chromosome 2 fusion, ERVs. They talked about the fossil record, and it really was a great discussion and a really, really fun audience Q&A. So I appreciate you guys sending in all of your awesome questions and keeping this lively. So I do want to go over some announcements. We've had a lot of content coming out lately, and April is going to be no different, guys. April is going to be just as packed as March. And we've already got some big debates that I am confirming and scheduling for the summer. So I want to have a big summer, a summer to remember. The first quarter of the Evolution Debate Challenge is coming to an end tonight. And it was a ton of fun. You can check out the Evolution Debate Series playlist. I think we've got about 20 in there now. And the fun continues into April, the next quarter, starting with Dr. Kent Hovind and Snake Was Right. They are going to be debating, is there reasonable scientific evidence for evolution? That is going to be on the 7th. And then the very next day, we're going to have our very own, our team geologist, Professor David McQueen. He is going to be debating Jason Torn, the Genesis flood debate. I am pumped for this one. This one is going to be a very sophisticated debate between two scientists on a very important topic. We also just booked another big soteriology debate that I am pumped for, and I know a lot of you are as well. This will be a debate on faith alone or faith plus works, but with a thesis that focuses more specifically on Romans 2:13. And does Romans 2:13 teach justification before God by works? So we've got Robert Wilkin and Robert Sungenis. So showdown of the Roberts, I guess you could say. So this is going to take place on June 9th. June 9th at 6 p.m. EST. So we just confirmed those details and got a thesis that both debaters can be content with. So this is going to be a ton of fun. And we've got more soteriology related debates in the works as well. So once I get the final details and confirmations there, I'll get those set. Last night, we had Chris Date and Dr. Shabir Ali. This one was a great debate. This one was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed the rewatch as well. Dr. Shabir Ali and Chris Date, both superstar debaters, both very seasoned. So if you have not yet seen that, this one was last night. Please check it out. Does the New Testament teach that Jesus is God? That was certainly a debate to remember. Goku, I appreciate that. We're glad you found the channel as well. We have debates and lots of content almost daily. So let your buddy Vegeta know about it as well, and make sure that Vegeta can subscribe alongside Goku. So all jokes aside, though, Saturday we will be back here. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to be on Christ Jesus Ministries channel. Christopher Cernicke, he does some fantastic interviews. It is going to be a pre-recorded interview. So that's going to be at 4. And then whenever he's done with it and editing it, he does a great job. We'll be able to release that, I'm guessing, probably next week. So there will be something tomorrow, just not live. But then we'll be back here Saturday, and we'll be here with Dr. Jerry Bergman. So this is going to be a ton of fun. Dr. Jerry Bergman, he is a warrior in the world of creation versus evolution. He's been doing this for a while. He has so much knowledge. He's well educated. He's got about 9 degrees. 9 degrees. And we are going to be having him on for a special presentation. The presentation will deal with refuting human evolution, but more specifically, the title is going to be Apes as Ancestors. And as we always do, we are going to be having a live audience Q&A, which brings me to a very important reminder. The 4th and 5th is coming quick. So we just put out an official trailer for this last week. Glad to see that everybody enjoyed it. I thought it was very cool. And this is going to be a 2-day event, spanning about 4 to 4.5 hours between both days, of course. There is going to be a ton of information, guys. This is going to be a very important and very thorough 2-day event. The boundaries of the flood. John Mackay, the creation guy, and Joseph Hubbard from the creation research team. They've done a ton of research on this topic, and they've got the most up-to-date research available for you guys. And we are going to be having some fun. So that, I believe, is going to be Monday and Tuesday. And of course, for both sessions, we are going to be having an audience Q&A. So if you're a critic, bring your best criticisms to the flood. If you're just somebody looking for an answer, bring your question, because we got answers, and we want to make that as thorough as possible. So Cheryl, I appreciate that, sister. Yeah, definitely check out the official website, standfortruthministries.com, where you'll find endless content, endless answers to common challenges and questions put forth regarding the topic of creation evolution. We also have a section on Christian apologetics, a section on the Trinity, a section on soteriology. So we want to give you guys a good amount of content, a good diversity of content on so many different important topics. So Ryan, Daniel, I appreciate that, brother. Good to see you. Such a lot of awesome stuff you have planned for us. Thank you for all you do. As I always say, it's 2022 and it's a great time to be a biblical creationist. Last thing I want to mention to any keyboard warrior or keyboard champions, a lot of them on Facebook, these Facebook groups that I'm in, it's just thousands of evolutionist keyboard warriors. And when they're really, really angry with a creationist, I'm pretty sure that they headbutt the enter bar when they are finalizing their comments. So truthishate2017@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. We are putting on the most debates out there. And this evolution debate challenge series for 2022 has been a ton of fun. And let's get you into the octagon. So shoot me an email if you're an evolutionist that wants to jump into a professional debate. So that being said, I'm looking at all the reminders here, and I think that's all I want to touch on now. Again, another one in the books. And keyboard. Actually, we're going to put out a competition, guys. Leave a comment or we'll make a post. Who can come up with the best title for these guys? Keyboard ninja, keyboard champion, keyboard warrior. It's time that they graduate from full-time keyboard warrior status in their mama's basement to a real live debate, face to face. Here in the octagon. It's not always easy, I know, and that's why these keyboard warriors, keyboard Karens, that's a good one too. So you know what, we will do that. That's too much fun. So start thinking about the best titles for these guys, and hopefully we'll get these keyboard ninjas ready to roll and ready to join us in the octagon for some important debates. Yeah, hey, Bond, are you calling out Karen here? Karen Wise, great job today with the moderating. I appreciate it. And Michael Knighton, good to see you, brother. They are a headbutt. So again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being so engaging in the chat, and we will see you this weekend, but then next week for some more debates in the Evolution Debate Challenge series and our two-day event on the flood boundaries. So thanks again for tuning in. Standing for Truth is out. God bless everybody.